Alright, so where we left off, our party was venturing out of the inn, what seems to be in the middle of the night, because I had a nightmare about a body hanging from the tree. So let's see if I can find said body. It was, I believe it was called the Animancer. It was the one of the people that was called in for basically the same purposes that I'm trying to find somebody, someone with experience with the spirit or the soul. And looks like the king hung said person. Staircase, interesting. Not what I'm here for though. Oh, I guess this is the way in. So we're trying to find this dwarf woman that was hanging from the body that I saw in a nightmare. Oh cool, it's glowing. That's a good sign.
Were you looking for someone in that tree? I could introduce you.
Strange way to talk about your dead. He looks up at the tree and breathes out. Half the town's up there now, seems like. No right way to talk about it. I'm looking for someone who can help me feel better. He gives an understanding nod as he takes a long drag from his pipe. My condolences. He exhales and turns his attention away, watching the village around him. Huh. I don't think I've talked to him before. I think when I first saw him, I may have assumed that he was the same guy we met in the beginning. That was Urgiant, wasn't it? Alright. Caldara di Berranzi. This should be the dwarf woman, who is glowing now, so that's concerning. The squat, distended body of an elderly dwarf woman dangles from a thin, crooked bough that sags at the tug of her noose. The bloated purple flesh of her neck, worn away in patches like moth-eaten linen, bulges over the rope that suspends her, and her lifeless head lolls forward rigidly from one side to the other when the breeze shifts. You perceive a faint glow around her that casts no light on its surroundings, but there is a tepid warmth to it, and you feel, somehow, that you could reach out and touch it, not with your hands, but with some aspect of yourself that has no worldly dimension. Reach out for the woman. So this would be the same thing we were doing in town, or in the inn, where we reached into the memories of 3 different people there. You take a deep breath, clearing your mind, focusing on your objective. As you exhale, you feel yourself spreading out toward the hanging woman, perceiving all that lies between you and her with new, unfamiliar awareness. Once you have expanded enough to reach her, there is a sudden jolt to your mind, a ringing, electric surge of images and words and sounds. Involuntarily you shut your eyes and feel yourself being pulled down to some deeper consciousness in a space occupied by only you and the hanging woman. And when you open them again, she is staring at you, with eyes clouded in a milky fog, her body still swaying in a wind you no longer feel, from a tree that stands planted in a misty void. The woman gives a slow nod of her head, the rope creaking as she does so, and she smiles at you.
Have you come here for me, dear? Or have you gotten lost? Ah, it is both, I think. Yes?
How are you able to speak to me?
Is that what we're doing? Perhaps it just seems that way. Perhaps it is the easiest way for your mind to make sense of it. I think it is a very good choice.
Am I imagining this?
No, I think not. A pity that. It would be simpler. A mercy even. To not have to wander anymore, no? Alas, we are here, you and I. Wherever here may be.
I need to understand something that's happened to me. She nods, a look of pity on her face, as though consoling a child.
The world looks a little different than it used to, is that it? Feels like you're noticing things for the first time that have always been there. You have seen past the shroud. It only takes an instant. Your soul remembers, yes? Remembers how it sees when it leaves the body, like being reminded of a dream you had forgotten. You are a watcher now, and a watcher you will stay.
What is a watcher?
What indeed? Long hours have many animancers spent studying such things. Not I, though. Not I. I'll tell you what I know, though, since fair is fair. And here we are, visiting, you and I, and it reminds me of better times. Souls pass on. Some say through Adra stones, which are the blood veins of the world. They leave the world for a time and are reborn into it, sometimes more than they were before, but usually less and seldom the same. For all souls there is a time where they do not live, yet have not passed on, and those souls roam the world, same as you or I, either leaving or lost. But no one sees them because they have forgotten how. A watcher sees, though, knows what to look for. And sometimes they know a person just by looking at them, know where they've been in ages past when their bodies were other bodies. See memories even their owner can't recall. A wonder to behold when all goes well. A wonder!
Oh, that's interesting. That means that those visions I was seeing of the people back at the inn could have possibly not been visions of them in their current lives, but in previous lives. Although one of them, I think one of them was all shaky or whatever. Like that person, the person with the shakes, probably was the same person because that's like a traumatic memory of how they became who they were. Granted, we don't know the people all that well. What did you mean when all goes well?
Oh, nothing to be afraid of, I'm sure. It's just much to take in for some. Sometimes there's trouble sleeping or other difficulties.
She smiles at you reassuringly, fanning out a tuft of long whiskers that sprouts from one of her cheeks.
You should see old Merwald. He could tell you much more than I. A watcher just like you. Helped many in his day. Took up in an old keep no one would claim. Not far, not far. Cadnua, beyond the Black Meadow. He will welcome the company.
Alright, Cadnua. So we have a new goal. I think I survived a Beowulf. Do you know why that would be?
Did you now, dear? My, that would be something, wouldn't it? Could be luck, could certainly be. A storm can be a careless thing. Or maybe it got its hands around your soul but couldn't pick it up. A soul can be heavy if it stayed in one piece through its time. Strong souls, we call them in the trade. Cold, I mean. Called them. Those days are all behind me now.
Strong souls that haven't broken apart, have stayed in one piece through its time. Does that mean I'm a new soul? Or that I've been somehow being reincarnated over and over again without becoming weaker each time the way they say they would? You said souls break apart over time.
Oh, yes. Entropy. Rimagan's work. We know little of why or how. We lose pieces of ourselves when we die and pick up pieces of others when we are born again, but less than what we lost. We tried to stop it with the animantic sciences, but with little success. A very small few resist Rimergan's influence and stay together through some force of defiance, at least for a time. But they all succumb eventually, I think.
Wow, that got deep. We started talking about the entropy of the universe, basically, or at least of the soul, but the universal soul. I want to know something about you.
Me? I'll bore you to tears, though.
Who are you?
And here I thought you'd come to visit me in particular. Caldara de Berranzi, of the Valian Royal Academy of Animantic Sciences. Not the greatest of their number, but I came here all the same because this was where help was needed.
What happened to you? She laughs, a rasping, choked cackle escaping between rows of buttery yellow teeth, causing her body to bob up and down with each spasm. Seeing your blank expression, she catches herself.
Oh, come now. Such a question. As though the answer were plain as a rope tied for strangling. Allow an old dwarf her last bit of cheer. Well, I came where I was needed, didn't I? Offered my services to Lord Radric for a pittance. A humble pittance. I was to examine the Lord's wife, see why the gods have seen fit to poison her womb. Studied her for months, looked high and low for impurities, tested her valence, the permeability of her essence. Do you know what I found?
Tell me.
Nothing at all. A healthy woman, head to toe, blessed with a beautiful soul. Such a sweet woman, too. Meek, but warm-hearted. A few months' time, and the lord of the house demanded answers. For a time, I told him what he wanted to hear. Oh, yes, my lord, she is riddled with imbalances. I must have time to cure her. As the birth drew near, he grew impatient, as lords do. And this is where I've ended up.
So she could even find out what was wrong in the first place. She may not even be the best expert to talk to, for all we know. What's an animancer?
A student of the soul. Something so basic, yet so poorly understood. But so many breakthroughs have been made in my lifetime. Had been. To hear the locals tell it, we're a gang of soul manglers that preys upon the weak-minded. And the worst of us are. But the best of us? The best? Inspirations, miracle workers. My parents were soul twins. Miserable before they met, empty inside. It was an animancer who helped one find the other, turned their lives around. You wouldn't believe the stories. Amnesiacs helped to remember their lives. The suicidal brought back from the brink of oblivion. The elderly afforded extra moments to say their goodbyes. How soon we forget when we're afraid. It's a fascinating science. A fascinating time to be alive in a place like Deerwood that does not control the research, no? I love the Valian republics for many things, but their recent caution will leave them behind, I fear.
I had other questions.
Of course, dear.
Or maybe I don't. I guess I say farewell? It's a little awkward to be like, alright, you're dead, and I might be the last person that ever talks to you. I'm leaving now.
Goodbye, my dear. It was lovely visiting.
Caldara closes her eyes and her head slumps forward over the noose, and your surroundings seem to bleed into your vision from some unknown place of waiting. Eleth looks at you through narrowed eyes. Are you alright? You seemed lost just now. This happens a lot. You'll have to get used to it. He folds his arms. That's good to know, but I don't suppose you could tell me what this is all about. I'm a watcher. His arched eyebrows recede into his hood. Well, that is interesting. He gives you a sly grin. And I expect this has something to do with that hooded figures in the ruins, huh? In any case, I appreciate your honesty. Since we're traveling together, it's probably wise for you to share these things. Do you know anything about Watchers? Only that they're rare and they seem to have unique insights into certain soul conditions. He coughs. As you just demonstrated. Let's continue on. Now I need to travel to was it Cadnua? I think they pronounced it. New quest, the Old Watcher. 17 and a half. What is that? Let's check the quest really quick. The spirit of Caldara di Berranzi, one of Lord Redric's unfortunate victims, has directed me towards Cadnua, where I will find a man named Merwald. Caldara has informed me that I have become something known as a Watcher, and that this Merwald is a Watcher as well. Perhaps he can tell me more about what's happening to me. Cadenua is southeast of Gilded Vale, past the Black Meadow. I will have to travel there if I am to speak with Merwald. So we're going to the southeast. I might want to hire help if it becomes dangerous. I don't know. I also don't know if hiring people is temporary in this game or if it just adds party members from scratch. I guess we'll find out. Alright, my goal is to go to the Black Meadow to the southeast, then Cadenua. This guy had something to say the moment I walked away, though. Does he have a reaction? The smell of pipe smoke, at once earthy and sweet, winds its way into your nostrils. Oh, I can make this bigger. Interesting. Your eyes trace the smoke to its origin, where you find a broad man with a straw-colored hair leaning against a mossy rock wall, his pipe held to his lips with one meaty hand. He looks at you directly in the eye, but the look is not aggressive. He regards you with a peculiar smirk.
17 and a half. Well, could be 18, depending on how you count the dwarf woman.
I'm sorry?
The dwarf woman. You were trying to figure out whether to count her as a full person. I think you oughta.
What are you talking about?
The people hanging from the tree. 18 of them. Well, last I counted, anyway.
So this is his interpretation of watching me stare at the dwarf woman as he was trying to figure out... He thinks I was trying to count the bodies. Edèr frowns. Is that what you people do for fun around here?
Name's Edèr. Though to the people around here, might as well be 19. Don't think I'd put you much higher than 22, 23 tops. You look like the sort that likes to get involved.
This sounds like a good reason to leave, actually. So he thinks he's gonna die, next. And he thinks we're gonna die after a few more people. So that sounds like a good I get the feeling that he's gonna be joining our party, and we're all gonna get the fuck out of town. What makes you think I'm interested in the dwarf woman? He looks at you for a moment, his brow arched, his smirk broadens.
Well, I was smoking over here, saw you staring at her. Twice I refilled my pipe. You never so much as blinked. Your mouth was so slack I took you for a Radric at first.
Impossible, I don't drool half as much. Huh, so you're already familiar. Still, you'll have to forgive my curiosity. Around here we prefer to turn a blind eye to our dead. I've been out of sorts lately. Of course. We all got our bad days when we'd stand perfectly still and stare at corpses for a while without blinking. He winks. Do you know what a watcher is?
Careful, friend. Best not use that word round here. Could be any number of Radric bootlickers within earshot. Ciphers, animancers, watchers. Same thing in the eyes of folks around here, Radric especially. They come through these parts all the time with their cures, preying on the desperate. None of them are who they claim to be. Of course, seeing you with that funny look, I'd be halfway inclined to believe you were having some kind of communion with that dwarf. Either case, maybe I'm not 19 after all. No offense.
You think you're going to be hanged?
The town's had it in for me for a long time now. Only fellow who ever stuck up for me, well, he's number 18 up there. My headman on the farm. Used to be my captain during the war.
The war? Saints' War. Only once in my lifetime. Fella decides he's the living incarnation of Ethos, overthrows Redcris, marches on Deerwood. So we gave him a Deerwood and hello. What's a Deerwood and hello?
We blew him up.
He smiles at this, but it is the smile of one recounting a joke for effect rather than for enjoyment. Who is Ethos? God of rebirth and redemption, formerly anyhow. Maybe they call him something different from where you're from. I had other questions. I got time. Why was your headman hanged? Got involved. Redric sent men down here the other day. Said they had it on good authority someone in town was working with Kolsk, plotting Redric's overthrow. Said if they didn't come forward right then and there, he'd hang every last one of us. No one was coming forward, so Swithin, that's my headman, he steps up and says it's him. They took him at his word. He sighs and shakes his head, his eyes fixed on the tree. Bound to happen sooner or later. If not for plotting against Redric, then for protecting me. What does your town have against you?
Pick the wrong god. That's what it comes down to. Used to be a lot of Aethys worshippers in Gilded Vale. That mess of rocks over there, that was a temple to him, to give you some idea. Then one day, somebody named Widewind shows up on Deerwood's doorstep. Says he's the living flesh of Aethys. Got an army with him. Suddenly, Aethys isn't so popular in these parts. My brother Woden and me, neither of us believed it. No way was that Aethys. He enlisted, then I did too. But, he didn't make it back. After the war, people took to punishing Aethys worshippers, accusing them of treason. Got real ugly, especially after the legacy started. Folks needed someone to blame. I was safe because I fought, but then this rumor starts that my brother, that he was on the wrong side. And I wasn't so safe anymore. Until my headman stepped in and said they'd have to hang him to get to me. Seems that's no longer a concern. Of course, the townies don't do the hanging these days, but when Raedric's men come, they got no problem doing the pointing.
Elith glances at you and lowers his voice. You can see why I was eager to leave. Who's Kolsk? Someone got tired of all the hangings. He's on the run now. Probably will be till they catch him. If you're next to be hanged, what are you still doing here? He gives a half smile. Drinking, mostly. Point of fact, I'm on my way out, just haven't figured out where I'm going yet. Not a whole lot of places out there that don't think Waidwin's legacy started with Waidwin. We could travel together. Where are you headed? Some place called Cadnua. There's an old watcher there who might be of help to me.
Seem to remember hearing something about that years ago. He tamed that place. People would seek him out for all kinds of things. Troubles of the soul, questions for the departed. Of course, that was back when you didn't have to say watcher with a hush on your breath. A man such as that, there'd be things I'd want to ask him. Don't know why I never thought of it before.
Something kindles in Edèr's eyes, and the vigor of purpose finds its way into his voice.
Not sure how I feel about setting out with a stranger, and a strange one at that. But truth be told, you might be the only one in town who wouldn't feel some relief seeing me swing from that tree.
That's a fine reason if ever I heard one.
All right then. Guess I'll do some sightseeing. Long as you're not the one picking the sights.
He glances briefly at the tree, tilts his head forward, and gives you a pointed look. Let's get going. Alright, new friend. Fragments of Scattered Faith. Edgar has agreed to travel with me. He seemed to have some questions he thought the Watcher might be able to answer. After telling Eder that I was headed to Cadnua to see its lord, an old Watcher named Merwold, he expressed that there were things I'd like to ask Merwold as well. He'd like to ask. So we have a side quest for our new friend Edèr, and we're still on our way to the Watcher. So we only have one thing to think about right now, so we may as well just get going. Gonna re-customize my little party layouts here. Let's see here. The wolf's always gonna be at my side. That's like the point, basically. There we go. Yeah, he can hang out by the wolf. That's my in-town position, and this will be my tank position. Why am I so weirdly off-center? Let's fix that. There we go. Tank's in front. Mage just off to my back. Maybe mage in a little bit of a flanking position. There we go. So that'll be our normal moving position during combat scenarios when I think that's happening. And this will be how I travel as a group. Realistically, you could just travel in a crazy combat position all the time. It just looks silly, because like when I'm walking around town, to be in like a military position when it's time to be acting like we're just people. So that's why I like the idea of having this this standard position where we just all walk as one group. Where it's me and my wolf companion, and my friends are behind me. So let's look at our new friend's character. Oh, his beard doesn't quite look like what you think it would. Everyone's character models are a little disappointing compared to the beautiful paintings. So then you see like a kind of not very well animated 3D model at the bottom. So what kind of equipment does he have? He starts off with a saber, 14 to 21 slash, and a shield that does 12 deflection. Oh, he's also got bow experience. Interesting. He starts off with a better bow than I start with. Anyway, probably want to throw... Let's see. Rapier. I could throw a fair amount of this combat equipment towards him. It might be good to give him this, let's see, Brigandine versus he has Saint's War armor. Scale armor is made of overlapping small plates of metal or horn sewn to a leather backing. It offers a balance of protection and speed. So this is looks like a special set here. He's got DR of 7, but it's a 9/8 pierce, 9 freeze. Pierce proofed, so it has bonus piercing damage reduction. Recovery speed minus 35%, and it gives him a second chance. Don't necessarily know what that means. As opposed to this piece of equipment that has no special bonuses, but it does have DR of 10. Brigandine. Despite its unassuming appearance, Brigandine provides impressive protection to its wearer at a cost of speed in combat. It is made of dozens of steel plates sandwiched between canvas or leather. The plates are held in place by distinctive rivets along the surface of the Brigandine. Alright. So, I could give him 3 more damage reduction, but he loses some neat special properties that this one doesn't have necessarily. And then we got this book in the bar. I guess now's as good a time as any to take a look at it. The Deerwood, Part 1. Early Colonial History. No other land has had such a wild and bloody recent history. From colony to Palatinate to Free Republic, the Deerwood has undergone a trial by fire to emerge as a powerful force of the Eastern Reach. Deerwood's history actually begins in Eder in 2602 AI. Edèr Eder explorers returned from a journey across the ocean with tales of the treasures they'd found. They discovered countless ruins scattered through the forest, as well as plains to the north of the trees that would be perfect for growing vorals. That was a problem, however. The locals were hostile, and there was potential for conflict. The Fairkoning of Edèr, Fairkoning, first king, knew that this was too good of an opportunity to pass up, and sent more explorers to scout and map the area. Exploration continued over the next 20 years. Small groups of explorers traveled back and forth between Eder and this new world, with a handful of colonists setting up camps to establish a base for the explorers to work out of. Conflicts with the locals, who the Ederans learned were called the Glenfathans, were rare, but frequent enough for the Fairkoning to send a small squadron of guards to help protect the citizens. These guards established a western section of the woods. This settlement would eventually become the city of Deerwood, upon which the modern-day village of the same name is presently built. Once that base was established, the first permanent Ederan settlements began north and west of the Bale River. Over the next 3 years, thousands of Ederans made the trek from Eder to the new land. The Glenfathans, who seemed to revere the ruins scattered through the forest, caused a few problems with some of the settlements, especially those founded near the ruins themselves. These were easily taken care of by the colonists with the help of the Imperial Guard. The Ederans, in order to further their foothold in the area, reduced the cost of production, and in an attempt to keep the Glenfathan population under control, started making slaves out of any Glenfathans captured during the uprisings. This resulted in a great increase in tension between the two groups, as slavery tends to do. With the population of the area growing, an official government structure was established by the Fairkoning. He appointed several earls to preside over the land and assigned them thanes to help run their territories, and they called the new Grefam the Deerwood. Deerwood remained the center for the Imperial Guard, but the settlement in Pearlwood Gulf, New Dunnard, was the true seat of power for the area. Sitting at the edge of the oceans, forest, and fertile farmland, and a river that runs from the coast to the White Marsh, settlers flocked to the area, hoping to establish names for themselves. Eder began to spread through the new land. So do we have a stash? There it is. Let's go ahead and put that book right over there, where we don't have to deal with it no more. Oh, I can move it around. Does it stay where I put it? It does. Good. So that's just, over here is a better position to put it in than in the middle of my own inventory screen. Oops, what did I click on? Oh, crafting screen. That's fine. We're out of here. Alright. So Eder has joined the party, and we're going to have to head to the west. It was the southeast, I believe. So south, road east, Blackhammer Smithery, Grid's house, windmill. Let's just try getting out. Let's get out of town before we get hung or something. We'll head to the southeast because I believe that's the direction we were going in for this quest. Black Meadow. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was southeast. Gonna have to just trust myself. That's the. Let's see, is this the path south? It's probably the path south, right? Megan's Fork. That's not the wet meadow I'm looking for. Is Megan's Fork part of the Black Meadow? Let's see. Karanua to see its lord. Oh, wait, wrong quest. Karanua. Past the Black Meadow to the southeast. Let's try the southeast road, perhaps. Maybe that'll be a better. That'll help me get where I'm trying to go. These people have names. That's might be worth talking to some of them. As you near, you feel a vibrant history contain the essence of this man's soul. Voices from its past seem to call out to you. You see a group of people standing around a wagon, transfixed on a sword as it swings in a large, graceful arc. This man holds the sword, passing it from hand to hand with a relaxed ease, making the blade dance in front of his audience. He tosses it into the air, spins, and then puts his arm behind his back to catch it. The crowd claps excitedly, and a couple of them gasp, certain they are about to see a tragedy. You see a room, bright, warm, and covered in greenery. There isn't a spot in the entire space that doesn't have some kind of plant growing in it. Small, germinating seeds in a corner here, large, sprawling vines climbing the walls there. Although most of the plants are actually in some kind of container, there are a few who have grown from the dirt of the floor itself. These are just as lovingly cared for as anything else in the room. This man wanders through the plants, smiling at each and every one. An old pipe clenched between his teeth. Stopping next to one, he touches a leaf, lifting it up and to look at the other side, then gently rubs it between his fingers. He takes a small handful of the soil and it grows and crushes in his fingers. Satisfied, he drops the soil back into the pot and continues to the next plant. He hums a low, cheery tune as he moves among the plants, occasionally stopping to sing a few words of something to one of them. Finally, he reaches the door, having visited every plant in the room. He turns back to look at them, a look of serene pleasure on his face. Then he turns back and is gone. So these are just a bunch of random glimpses to people's, not even their histories, but other people's histories, like their glimpses into past lives. It's probably just a good idea to get out of town at this point. No one likes me here. Okay. So Magran's Fork is not what I'm looking for, but it's the only thing showing up on the map. So I'm gonna assume that's where we're trying to go. It is to the southeast after all. So there's Caednua. Okay, so I have to go to the fork next to continue the path towards Caednua. I'm sure this will go great and no one will die horribly. We'll be fine. We're all going to die because we're gonna go outside and I don't like people. They're scary.